Hey, be a squid and subscribe to my mediocrity. How's it going, my squids? Today we're going to be talking about Outward, and I thought this is going to be kind of like a follow-up review of my previous one. It was asked a couple days ago about to do another review and get my thoughts on it now that I've played more, and it's, you know, I'm not going to say that I stand by what I said on my previous review, but I do think some things have changed in my opinion and perspective of what's been happening with this game, so let's go ahead and start talking about everything. So first things first is this game is absolutely amazing. It's 10 out of 10. It's like, despite its flaws that have been mostly fixed, mind you, I haven't come across any kind of issues or bugs or anything like that. It's more or less just preference and stuff that I dislike within the game that's a part of it, so that's a completely separate thing. But as far as, like, you know, the way the game works, how it plays, everything like that, 10 out of 10. No issues whatsoever. Everything pretty much got fixed within a week's time, which I think took a little too long, but hey, it's fine. But no matter how I look at it, this game was fun. Even when I had said that I didn't like the melee combat, how I didn't like magic and stuff like that, and mind you, I still stand by that. I don't like the melee combat and I don't like the magic because it's not what I'm used to and it's not what I like to do. Everything you see on my videos, you guys need to take at, like, not face value, but you need to take everything with a grain of salt. My job, whenever I'm making these videos, I'm supposed to entertain you guys. I see YouTube as a literal 9 to 5, and my 9 to 5 is entertaining you guys, making you guys laugh and making you guys stick around and be a part of the community. That is my job. So even though I'm sitting there laughing, doing all this stuff, I'm trying to be entertaining for you guys, and that's as transparent as you're gonna get out of me. That's the whole thing. So the reality is, I don't like the melee combat, I don't like the magic, but again, I'm a very niche person. There's just something about the way that they've done the magic and the melee combat that just isn't satisfying to me. And this goes for the same thing as, like, Dark Souls. I love that game as well, but my problem is I also don't like the combat in there either. But I enjoy it for the adventure, the rough times, the multiplayer, the cooperative experience, and having fun, and just having this incredibly hard game and playing it with somebody else. There's aspects that just I can overlook and just enjoy it for what it is, just because everything else outweighs it. So just to be clear, the combat, there's nothing wrong with it. I'm just a niche person that would like a bit of a different take on it. The combat to me is just kind of not satisfying. Whenever you're hitting something, you kind of want that boom. Instead, we get the, like, you know, there's a difference. And then when it comes to magic, it's not really what you would expect out of magic. You know, when you think magic, you're thinking of, you know, casting spells and, you know, chain lightning or summoning a fireball from just downtown. You're not thinking of, okay, we need to cast a boon so we have, you know, resistances to fire or ice or just whatever, and then we have to infuse our sword in order to shoot a fireball. You know, you don't think about that stuff. You think of, you know, what you're used to and what you've seen. Not to say that being different and innovating is bad, but it's something that was not to my liking because it's too much of a setup. It's too much. That's why you don't catch me using sigils or anything like that, because it's like I gotta set all this shit up just to shoot a supercharged up fireball. It's like it's not for me. That's why I've taken a liking to the rune magic and also the chakrams, because they're quick. It's not something that is an absolute crazy thing that involves a huge setup. And I know there's gonna be some people out there, well, you don't always have to do that. It's like, it doesn't matter if I don't have to always do that. It's the fact that there's still a setup regardless. If I wanted to be a pyro mage, my whole thing is I need a torch to blow fire. Like, that fucking defeats that's not magic. That's David Blaine holding a fucking torch. Like, all he's gonna do is just drink kerosene and spit at the torch and it shoots fire. Like, that's not magic to me. You know what I mean? Like, that's not, the move is called flamethrower. If the thing with that is it should shoot a flamethrower out of my hand or my mouth. It has absolutely nothing to do with you need a torch or a lantern to shoot a flamethrower. That just doesn't. You can't sit here and tell me that you're not fucking getting robbed out of a fucking mage experience. Like, that's just not where it's at. Anyway, enough rambling with my distaste with the combat. The bottom of the line is that it's good combat, just not for me. Moving on past that subject, let's start talking about the open world aspects and just the adventure RPG style of this game. Now, to me, this is where Outward shines bright, is because it offers a variety of options that you can do. This is one of the few games that gives you an immense amount of freedom to where you can kind of make your own character to a certain degree in terms of like customization in terms of looking like a cool character. In my personal opinion, the customization options kind of suck, but once you get past that and you start to build your character from the ground up, you've got options from magic, melee, you've got like weird tank sides of things, but you have so much freedom to make your own adventure and make your own adventurer and make them however you feel like one moment you're like, I want to be a mage, next moment you want to be the guy with the giant hammer or axe, next you want to be kind of like this weird hybrid paladin, pyromancer, or like caster of some sort. You even got like a little bit of necromancy involved. There's a lot of freedom within Outward, and that's one of the best selling points for this game, is being able to pick and choose and change what you want to do, and also mix and match as well. You don't always have to stick to one thing. Maybe you want to run a paladin build where you're running sword and shield and you have lightning abilities. You have all kinds of different options, and that's what you should be looking for in a video game versus having some kind of set path or being the chosen one or whatever. You should have a lot of control, and I hate it when games, you know, that they make you pay a pretty hefty price for something and you can't control 90% of what you do. Like, that's just an absolute insanity fucking purchase for me, and that's the justification of whether I should buy a game or not, is how much control do I actually have. One thing that I want to note here, and that you guys should probably note as well, is that this is a studio with 10 people that created a game like this, which in my personal opinion outweighs some of the weirdest AAA titles that have come out in 2019. Like, just not a one-to-one comparison by any means, but just I would much rather play Outward, which is more of an indie game, versus Anthem, versus The Division. And to say, the first thing, Anthem is terrible, mind you, but The Division is actually a pretty good game. But I'm not even playing The Division. As you guys, I own it. I did a review on it. It was pretty good. I had nothing bad to say about it, but Outward completely swept my attention from those games, and I was able to just be at peace with this, and I don't even care to go back to them anymore. I'm just over it. You just kind of have to sit back and appreciate the fact that 10 people who actually play video games, test their stuff, and had a clear vision, and just, you have to appreciate it. You have to just sit down and realize that 10 people made this, so what the fuck is the excuse of AAA companies that can't even produce or even listen to decent feedback? You can't, there's no excuse anymore. Outward has single-handedly set the bar up high when it comes to RPGs in general, whether it be open world, action, whatever. The reality is, if 10 people can produce a game this good, regardless of time as well, then a AAA studio should be able to produce a somewhat fucking decent functioning game without the most insane garbage, microtransactions, whatever. And that's another thing I want to talk about, is microtransactions. You would think that there would be some way, or that they would try and monetize this game in some form or way, but they have not put any microtransactions, no cosmetics. But just as a thing, I would probably purchase cosmetics, but there has to be a variety of content if they're trying to monetize it outside of just the game purchase. Which leads me to my next point, which is that there is a variety of content to a certain degree. Like, once you kind of run through the game, for me, the replayability is not as great as something else. Like, you can change up your class and whatnot, and that's probably where the replayability comes from, but in my personal opinion, doing the same dungeons over and over and over again, it gets repetitive. It's one of those things that, you know, just being repetitive. But like I always say, a game will always get repetitive if you play it too much, so that's not saying much. And oddly enough, the reason that I don't think the replayability is that good is because I think the game is actually too easy. I know somebody in the comment section is probably like, what do you mean you think this game is too easy? Like listen, all right, let me break it down. I'm doing a chakram run, and I'm doing it. You know, I think Ghost Pass was the hardest thing that I've done. Hold on, excuse my voice, Jesus Christ. Okay, anyway, I'm doing a chakram run. Like, chakrams are literally revered as the worst weapon in the game, and it definitely is. From a guy that's doing a run on that, it is the worst weapon in the game, hands down. It's got the worst abilities, it's got the worst setup, it has everything about it is fucking wrong. But I'm able to pull it off because I can exploit some of the mechanics, I can kind of understand how the NPCs work. So in my personal opinion, the game is actually pretty fucking easy. Once you kind of play the game for roughly about 10 hours, you learn how the NPCs move. 90% of the time you can can actually just run past them and they completely whiff their moves, and then you can punish from behind. It's like a fighting game. If you guys don't understand what a whiff punish is, it's essentially where you're playing, let's say, a fighting game, for example, like Street Fighter. If you throw out a punch and it goes completely over your head and it misses, then it's your turn to take the opportunity to punish that whiff. So with having that knowledge in mind, if as long as you dodge right past somebody, they're at a significant recovery time, and you can just kind of attack them from behind, and it's free damage essentially, and you just kind of rinse and repeat that process until the whole game is beaten. Now mind you, it's not always like that. Certain bosses and certain mobs have the potential to have different abilities. Like there's these weird tree creatures, they tend to shoot exploding bees at you, so on top of you having to dodge their physical attacks, you have to actually dodge these bees as well, because it does an immense amount of damage and it explodes, and upon death they also send out shooting bees, so if you don't remember or pay attention, you will also get shit on. And then there's a few other bosses that do poison or they shoot lightning, stuff like that. So it's not to say that there's not a depth to mechanics, but not a lot of it. Most of the mobs and stuff like that are pretty easy, and they're not dense either. I would like to see a more difficult version, like if there's a new plus gameplay or not gameplay, save or something like that, where maybe you carry over to the next one. I tried the legacy stuff, and the legacy character it's the same difficulty, but you just can use the legacy chest and collect things and whatnot, so it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. I know it's very odd and weird to ask for a more difficult version of a game that you like, but that's just kind of where I'm at. It would add a lot more replayability if I could actually play on a harder difficulty, and that also makes for great content as well and promotion for their game, because now I'm like, okay guys, guess what? I'm gonna do the extreme difficulty chakram run. You know what I'm saying? Like it adds a level of replayability and content that would equal more promotion. So not to say that there's not plans for a future with Outward when it comes to adding new content, but just as an idea, maybe a difficulty upgrade would be a good idea, just to kind of make things a bit more spicy. So in conclusion here, Outward is a great game. It's 10 out of 10, 100,000% worth the $40. The adventure alone is worth the money, right? You got to understand, when I'm doing this review, I'm throwing in like my personal preference and what I would like to see. So where I may not like the combat, you may like it. So you have to take everything with a grain of salt and experiment with yourself. I'm just here to tell you what the game is about and what's going on. So even though I'm like, yo, the combat, I'm not a fan of it, doesn't mean it's bad. It just means I would like to have seen something different, but a lot of people really enjoy the combat. I'm a niche person. I'm a niche reviewer, so you have to take that again with a grain of salt. And even looking past that, the level of freedom that you guys have, the customization options, just the adventure in general is just outweighs anything that's negative. Not to mention that as a studio with only 10 people, you have to just marvel at the fact that they're setting the bar extremely high for indie games, and little alone outbeating some of the weirdest AAA titles that have come out this year. So there's nothing bad about this. I can't help but just to recommend it to everybody. So make sure you guys check out Outward. If you guys really enjoyed the video, make sure you guys hit that subscribe button and like and all that fucking garbage that everybody talks about that I try to avoid doing. But anyway, that's it. Bye bye.